everybody, astrologer coming at you to talk about the events of February 2019. Okay, so we got through all those eclipses and stuff in January. We got some different things to talk about now for the month of February. One of the big things, let's talk about, just start out talking about Chiron. Chiron is C-H-I-R-O-N, and Chiron is, they think it's maybe a comet that got caught in our solar system. So we used to think it was an asteroid, but it's too big and blah, 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 blah. So it was discovered in 1977, and it's between Saturn and Uranus, and it has about a 49-year orbit. So it's a big thing. We have your Chiron return when you're about 49 or 50. But Chiron itself is the wounded healer. In mythology, if you read about him, and there's, by the way, a great book called Chiron and the Healing Journey that's by Melanie Reinhardt. I should have had it to show you. But it's a great book to read about your own Chiron and the angles it makes in the chart and the house placement and the sign and stuff. And there aren't a lot of good books about it. So Chiron and the Healing Journey, again, C-H-I-R-O-N. Well, Chiron is moving into the sign of Aries. It kind of popped in, I think, a little bit last year, but it's going in for good starting sometime in late February. And in an ephemeris, sometimes you don't see it listed with the exact numbers. They just give you the first of the month where Chiron is. But for it to be starting a whole new cycle, right, from 29 Pisces going to 0 Aries, and it stays in a sign for about 5 years. So that theme that we're coming out of Chiron and Pisces, it is a little, you know, it can be about sad things or about things you want to transform. And I mean, Chiron always is. Sorry, my necklace is screwing up. But there just tends to be even more hope when Chiron goes into Aries about long-term issues you want to heal, about if you're even interested in the healing arts. You know, you can have an influx of energy if you do Reiki or some sort of hands-on healing thing or any type of healing work. Even counseling work can take on a new tone if you're in counseling, if you are a counselor. So there's a lot of like fresh energy about issues you're dealing with when Chiron goes into Aries. And there's more of you know, because Pisces can be like, I'm hoping for something, and the faith of things healing. And not that Chiron in Pisces is bad, it's just we're kind of tired of it after 5 years. So going into Aries, it's like, I'm actually doing something about it. You know, I'm not just hoping. What actions can I take? And feeling hopeful in a different way, of feeling empowered that you're actually doing it and probably seeing some results, or having a fresh yes about, you know, anything you want to shift and change in your life. So that's cool. And so then let's talk about relationships and things, being February being the month of Valentine's Day. And just as an astrologer and as a counselor, you know, I'm actually an Aquarius, so my birthday's a few days before Valentine's Day, so I kind of usually don't pay much attention to it. It's like, you know, my birthday, and just kind of like Valentine's Day go by. But the more counseling I did over the years, it's like so many people put such a weight on Valentine's Day. And, you know, kind of like a compare and despair sort of thing, like, is my relationship good enough? And this one seems happier over here, and I'm not. So it turns into, a lot of times people break up at Valentine's Day or have big fights, and maybe it has to do with the level of expectations about perfect romance, and when things are awry, it means disaster or something. So I always want to kind of address that for this month because of the way certain planets are moving. One that doesn't have so much to do about the Valentine's thing, but it can, is the planet Mars is in Aries for the first half of February. And Mars in Aries in its own sign, it's like, yeah, you know, Mars is powerful, Mars is anger, Mars is sexy, Mars is setting goals and going for it, and it's enthusiasm. So when Mars is in its own sign, it's got a lot of energy to it. The beginning of, well, it was like, today's the 3rd, I'm doing this, but the 1st and 2nd of February, Mars and Pluto made a square. It's all over, happens really quick, but Pluto is like Mars's big brother, and the square, you know, from Pluto can be like, you know, stop that, or don't do that, or feeling ashamed, or just feeling irritated. And this can, you know, kind of begin a theme if you are in a relationship, or even aren't. It can be the negativity, I'll never find someone, or you're in the relationship and I'll never be good enough So it could be the beginning of a little seed of, let's say, discontent with that Mars-Pluto square. Then Mars moves really fast. It goes to be conjuncting the same as Uranus. Now, this is kind of a little hot spot because Uranus, Mars and Uranus will do this at 29 degrees of Aries. So Mars is just about to go into Taurus, which is not a big deal. It happens once every 2 months. Mars is going to change signs. But Uranus is going to change signs in March, which we'll talk about, going into Taurus for good, because again, it popped into Taurus for a few months in 2018. But when planets are on the edge of the sign like that, you know, the 29th degree, it's a lot. And Mars can be, again, you know, anger, but it's passionate, and Uranus can be sort of chaotic. And when you put Mars next to Uranus, again, it is kind of explosive. It can be explosive for change in a good way, or it can be, you know, because we just had the Mars-Pluto square. So that Mars-Uranus conjunction happens on the 13th, so right before Valentine's Day. Now, again, if you're in a new relationship, it can be like, yeah, like I'm falling in love, or I'm daring to say something. But, you know, and hopefully in long-term relationships, you can revitalize yourselves with passion and connection and enthusiasm for growing together. But kind of the default is like having a fight, or again, this idea of something isn't as good as you want it to be, you know, or you're not as good as you want to be. You know, you can pick on yourself. But there's that edge that happens there with the Mars-Uranus conjunction. Now, I'm going to go on to some Venus stuff in a second, but Mars going into Taurus, there can be a softening when Mars goes into Taurus of like, okay, let's calm down, you know, and seeing, this is what I want to get the theme to about what are the priorities, what are your values? That's another strong Taurus issue, is values in relationships. So Mars can be the seeking, you know, and Venus, Taurus being ruled by Venus, which I'll get into, is like seeking those values and prioritizing what's really important and seeing from those eyes of what's really important. Now, Venus is doing some interesting stuff. Venus is in Capricorn, and so we've got the 18th, the 23rd, and the 28th. So coming after Valentine's Day, Saturn conjunct Venus. Now, Venus is the ruling planet of Taurus. So there's this theme about putting aside the irritation of all that Aries stuff and opening your heart to really what is. And Taurus and Venus can have to do with gratitude, because Mars is like what I want, but Venus is what I have, and loving what I have. So when Venus is close to Saturn, sometimes Saturn can give a sense that I don't have what I want. Saturn can make you feel like there's like a barrier between what you want to have and what you do have. And there can be some negative thinking there right after the Valentine's Day. Or hopefully, if we're watching this, to really, the other way to work this is Saturn can also zero in on the small things I do love. And that idea when you are grateful and you focus there and expand that gratitude, it can soften your heart, open your intuition to, if there is a more serious issue, how that can be corrected instead of picking on the relationship or picking on yourself. This can also have to do with money themes. I want to throw that out too, relationships and money stuff, abundance themes. And because so much about Venus is about receiving your good, receiving love, receiving abundance, deserving to live a good life, deserving to live without self-criticism, whatever it is, living peacefully. So the Venus-Saturn can be, again, this tendency to pick, and it's happening right at Valentine's Day, or it can be picking on what you're loving about someone, about yourself, about the relationship, about life. But then Venus will then conjunct Pluto, go right next to Pluto on the 23rd, and that also can rile up things about I'll never have what I want, because Saturn's the final planet we see with the naked eye, and Pluto's the final planet of the solar system. So they can both bring up this feeling of personal empowerment, that I'm in control of my own little universe, or a sense that I'm on the fringes, I'm like isolated from what I want or distant. It's a funny dynamic dichotomy. They can be one or the other. So Venus and Pluto can be being obsessive about relationships, or a compulsive feeling about money, all this kind of thing, or doom, I'll never have this. Or it's saying, you know, opening your heart to feeling you deserve to receive what you desire, what is your highest good, that you're worthy of having this life you love, and for the improvements to come into your life or whatever. Then Uranus is going to square, Venus is going to square Uranus, same idea, on the 28th. And that can be, you know, again, if you've gone through the whole month of like, I hate this one, it can be pretty explosive at the end of the month. And Venus is the relationship and Uranus is a massive change or a breaking apart. You know, it can be like, I'm tired. And again, if your relationship is something that isn't flowing with the changes that you see through the month, this person doesn't match my values, or this, even if it's a job, we're talking about money, you know, that I need to make a shift where I can live from my values and I feel welcomed in this area, if it's your job, if it's your relationship, then you can make some changes, and hopefully not like, you know, screw you type changes, but saying, hey, this isn't working. Or it can be the relationship improving because you're both looking at the shared values, or how the values maybe can have conflict, and you can learn to work together with the conflict somehow creatively. But it kind of depends on how you're approaching these things. Now, something that can come in to help is Mercury, our thinking, is moving into Pisces, which is very much about forgiveness and seeing, like, let's say you have the relationship and, you know, you love each other, but you're arguing, whatever. That Mercury in Pisces is being able to kind of look with love, like as if you're like an angel looking over the two of you, or yourself struggling in self-love issues, or in a job that's challenging or something, or having money problems. Like you're looking at yourself with love and compassion, looking at the whole circumstance with compassion. That can be in your meditation, seeing that, trusting there's a higher answer and there's this kind solution that's over you. So reaching for that Mercury in Pisces, and then Mercury is going to work really well with Venus and later in the month, and even, let me see my notes here. Yeah, Mars. Okay. Oh, it's conjuncting. Okay. Mercury and Venus working with Neptune is what I wrote down, but I couldn't see for a second. And Neptune even enhances that because Neptune is a planet connected with Mercury being in Pisces. And so there's this idea of holding this higher story over that's going on underneath here, and that you can come to this unconditional love place. And again, if it means you make the changes in the relationship that mean going separate paths, or but you're both living from this space of truth, and that you both deserve more abundance, that you can't supply the other or something. But there really can be a sense that it's through facing the problems, you can find a solution that does fit both people's needs. But it has to do with that space of compassion and understanding and forgiveness while you're going through some of the stuff, and saying, wow, maybe the universe is giving us information to create a bigger space of growth. You know, that we're just kind of outgrew this limit and we're opening up to here because there was conflict within the smaller dome, and then that dome expands, that we're living under this bigger sky or something. So looking at things that way. And again, if you know, you're looking at people, oh, I don't have a partnership at all, it's looking at the self-love and seeing yourself as a valuable future partner to someone else if you want a relationship, or looking at forgiving past relationships can be a theme too. And again, looking at your values, about what you're seeking in terms of the values being fulfilled and what is important to you to share in a relationship and to attract in somebody else, attracting that person in. So those are the main themes. And then also this idea of Chiron going into Aries, that there's a like, yeah, we can do it, you know, that changes can happen, that big growth can shift things instead of being a cycle that happens over and over again, you know. So, okay, those are the main things I wanted to discuss for the month. And if you would like to have a session with me, you can always go on my website, alunamichaels.com. Remember, I have my little book, The Spiritual Gifts of the 12 Astrological Signs, that has spiritual steps for each of the signs. You can get that from my website or from Amazon Kindle. My phone number for texting or phone calls, I don't mind the phone, 248-583-1663. And have a happy, loving month of February, being kind to yourself and knowing that we have all we need and the universe can supply those desires of our heart, and being open to feel worthy to receive all of that. So I will see you next month, and bye-bye for now.